Welcome to Live Action Star Wars. I'm Ralph,
I'm Vactor.
and tonight we are discussing the Acolyte Episode 5, Night, which this stream is happening at night, so I guess it makes sense. But for those of you listening at home, for those of you watching on YouTube or Twitch or wherever, James is on holiday. He wasn't going to be able to make it to the episode tomorrow morning at our normal time. And then I had a scheduling conflict happen in the morning. So luckily, Vactor's here to sit in as our guest host for this very, very exciting week.
Oh yeah.
Holy shit, dude. Let's talk about Acolyte episode 5 Night. Thoughts out of the gate. What do you think? What do you think of Acolyte overall? What before you got to episode 5? What were your thoughts on?
Up to this point, I do not understand the hatred, the vitriol that is being spewed upon this like a Red Lantern's rage. I do not understand, even if you don't like it. Okay, yeah, I can see somebody saying, yeah, it's not the best. It's not Andor, right? But to say that it's the worst, that it's trash, that it's garbage, I'm like, what show are you watching? I am having a great time so far. It's it's providing so much water cooler talk. Like this is the most
Right.
fun I've had talking Star Wars in a long time. So I'm having a great time.
Great. I am as well. I feel like a lot of the criticisms may be sort of coming from a different place than what's presented on screen. I could be wrong, but the term woke shows up a lot in a lot of these complaints. Um, I don't care if this is woke, then I'm all for it because I love this show. I've said it before and I'll say it again. And I'm actually, here's the thing. I said that I like this. I think this is a better Star Wars show than Andor. Andor is a better constructed piece of television,
Yes,
but
yes.
it can be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the Star Wars universe. This
Right.
100% is a Star Wars story. It may not be as well crafted as Andor, but I mean, the story's so good. The characters are so good that it might be my favorite Star Wars show um, ever. Uh, we've got 3 more episodes for them to stick the landing. I mean, I declared that with Ahsoka, and then that last episode didn't really land for me. It landed for my co-host James. But this show, it's so hitting the right spots for me.
Yes.
Um,
I
I I was
actually
on a downward spiral with Star Wars, and this is
mm,
like livened me up.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, that's
yeah,
exactly what that's good to hear. Like when I'm talking to Star Wars fans, I'm conversing, like I like things that bring people up instead of bring them down. So that
yeah.
is great news. And actually, I was telling my wife when I was watching it, I was like, this is what to me Ahsoka should have been. A lot of the lightsaber fights, a lot of the where the story's going, and just giving us new information in the Star Wars universe. And that's what I love is finding out things I didn't know before. And
Mhm.
people saying, "Oh, it's breaking the lore, breaking the canon." So far I've seen nothing in this
It's
show that has broken lore or canon.
it's putting the prequels in a new context. It's adding
Mhm.
stuff to the lore of the prequels, and I know that the Clone Wars did that as well.
Yes.
It put more stuff into context. I've seen the Clone Wars once all the way through and bits and pieces a second time, but I'm not into animated Star Wars that much. That's why when we started the show, I'm like, let's just stick to live action. And James like, cool, let's do that. But we have covered some animated stuff here and there on our Data Link shows. But with this, it's really helping me understand. it's kind of like explained because a lot of people keep saying like, "Oh, George would hate this. This isn't how George would have done it." This is kind of giving you fleshing out what George did with the prequels, something that
Yes.
took me probably 15 years to realize what was happening in the prequels, that the Jedi were their heads were in the clouds. Uh, they thought they were infallible, and that led them to put their guard down and get overtaken by the Sith and creating the Empire. And like there's stuff in the prequels, and again, it's so funny because it's still the same movies that have been around for 20 years, but the more I watch them, the more I get that maybe George could have explained those better in those movies. But this is helping me with wrestle things that I was wrestling with, like midichlorians,
Mm.
and being the chosen one. How Jedi are going about their business. I'm not a fan of organized religion, and the Jedi are definitely an organized religion. You saw it in episode 3, how essentially they're saying their religion is better than the witch's religion, and it's like it, it's all stuff George was talking about. So anybody who says that George wouldn't do Star Wars this way, he absolutely did do it, and this show is showing how he actually did that. And for me, it's terribly entertaining. I think the storyline is great. I've been enjoying every episode leading up to this one. Where we left off last week on that cliffhanger, where it's just like, oh, it was just getting to where I wanted. It was just getting good with the lightsaber fight, and then we get to episode 5, and it's this slow shot of Osha laying down, and I'm like, oh no, are they going to go to a flashback? Is this a flashback episode? Do we not get to see the lightsaber fight? And then they wait for a while where you see that cool image of where Darth Manny slapped his hand down, and you see the streaks from the Jedi being pushed back, and it looks like a big red hand. And again, I'm like, is it over? Is this the aftermath? Because last week I was afraid we're going to come back to this episode and just everybody was going to be dead.
Mm.
Luckily, we didn't get that.
Yeah, that
We
would
got
have
to
been
see,
too much of a jump.
yeah. And one of the things I reasons why I thought everybody was going to be dead is because in episode 1, this was something that was brought up last week by people who like to copy and paste opinions on the internet. Everyone mad about Kiara age, which I watched Star Wars Explained and I understand. Like it's fine. It's not super in canon how old he is, but people were also saying, but his line says, "But I thought the Sith had been, you know, extinct for a millennia." So for me, when people were up in arms about he's the guy that said it and he's right there seeing a Sith, nobody got back to the Jedi saying, "Hey, there's a Sith here," which means maybe that news didn't get back to the Jedi Council. So
Yes.
I was assuming
That's
Darth Manny just wiped them all out, which he kind of did, with the exception of
yeah.
one. So now, since Saul isn't tied into any other story that we know, much like the Mandalorian, there's people that show up, or in the Obi-Wan series or in Andor, there's people who will survive that series because we see them die in the movies that come after. With this, Saul could die before it gets back to the council to report on this Sith. We don't know. And that's exciting. Not knowing characters'
Yes.
fates is what makes me so excited about this show. As much as I love
Right.
Andor, I know he's going to
Yes.
make it. He's going to be fine. This show just showed us nobody's fine. Nobody's
That
fine. Kiadamundi, he's going to be fine.
yes,
Other than
right.
that,
With the
yeah,
exception of him and let's see, maybe if we see Yoda at some point, we know Yoda is going to be
right.
fine, but everyone else is completely like we have no clue, and that actually is exciting to me. It's something that when I was thinking about it, okay, I don't know where this is going. after the fifth episode, and the showrunner Leslie Headland, I saw a bunch of interviews. She had said, "Where you think this show is going, we're going to go the opposite direction. We're going to go in a different direction." So to me, that is exciting because I don't know where it's going, and I
Yeah.
I'm on the edge of my seat. And I'm like, yes, yes, more, more. When is the next episode going to come? Just like with last week when you had the cliffhanger, it was okay. I saw some people push back on it felt forced, like it ended too abruptly. And even in
Right.
episodes 1 and 2, I heard that, but I think once this is all out, once all 8 episodes are out, it's gonna be a great binge. Like, people are just gonna nobody's gonna be talking about, like, the time in between the episodes. It's gonna be, "Hey, it's all out. It's all one story. It's all
Mhm.
from episode 1 to episode 8. Here it is." And I think people are gonna be more pleased once you're at the end of this ride. But I'm having a great time so far. Like I said, to me, this is peak Star Wars. This is what Ahsoka should have been. I was really excited and pumped. And the only thing that I'm with Ahsoka right now, where I'm at, season 2 may be able to kind of bring me back because I kind of had the same
Yeah.
uh feelings as you did at the end. It was like, that was the end. That was the ending of this.
Yeah.
Like, if they had stopped at that, I definitely would have been upset. But I know there's a season 2 coming, so I know
Right.
there's more that we can get from that. But right now, Acolyte is the only thing I'm thinking about. And like you said, adding new context to the prequels, that's the same thing the prequels did to the original trilogy. It
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff we think about as Star Wars right now came from the prequels. A lot of people our age and growing up wanted to say, "Hey, the original trilogy is the only thing. George Lucas ruined my childhood with the prequels. They're terrible, blah blah." But now you fast forward and it's like 20 years later, wait a minute. Most of the stuff we think about comes from the
Yeah.
prequels. And so I
Listen,
love this time period.
I have 5 copies of the original trilogy on VHS sitting right next to me. They're all the different versions I got as George went through and updated them. I watched them so many times. I was so excited for episode 1. The hype was real. It had been 17 years since I seen a new Star Wars. I was a
Yes.
fan during the entire dark time, when it wasn't cool to be a Star Wars fan. And I felt a little let down, but I still saw episode 1 8 times. And I really liked episode 2. So many lightsabers, and I liked episode 3. I think episode 3, I thought they were I liked them more as they went, because
Yes.
I think with the first one, you're like, what? I don't, this is weird. But once you get the weirdness, you're kind of like, okay, I understand what he's doing. Now I can sit back and see what episode 2 is. And it's a lot of fun. I still think it's a lot of fun. Uh,
Right.
so I find myself nowadays, if I pop on a Star Wars, it's usually episode 1 or 2, which is really
Mm.
weird for a kid who grew up like loving the original trilogy. And I think
Yeah.
this sort of slow burn, or this appreciation over time that I've had for the prequels, it's one of those things where it's like it took me about 15 years to fully understand what he was doing with those, with the story, that I think it's one of those things where, like Rick McCollum said, every frame is so dense. There's so much stuff in every frame of the prequels that I find myself going back to that because I can still find something new.
Yes.
And watching this show is making me think about things in a different way. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, like George always said, the midichlorians were something that Qui-Gon believed in. Qui-Gon was a believer in the living force. Like there's different religions out there that all worship the same God, but they have different ideals and conceptualize what God is in different ways. Much like this show is now saying, like, the witches have a term for this sort of force as the thread.
I love
And
that.
so it's teaching me that what George didn't really explain in the original in the original prequel trilogy, um, that like Qui-Gon just had like this kind of belief that the force was part of living cells. He almost took the force as from a scientific approach,
Yeah.
which I kind of like. I kind of
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
because as fans of Lost, I'm a man of science, and other people might be, people of faith, and
Yes.
so for me, showing the witches, showing the Jedi, and how they operate, it's adding new context to what George did with Qui-Gon, and it's explaining like, hey, listen, the Force is a concept that a lot of people believe in. The Force is essentially another term for God or all powerful deity or whatever. But, you know, you can see how, like, people like Ezra have a connection with creatures. Qui-Gon had a connection with midichlorians and cells, and looking at the Force on a physical level. And then you have people who believe in the Force on a purely spiritual level, which I feel like Obi-Wan maybe didn't side with Qui-Gon. He didn't believe in that. He thought of it as a mystical force. So this show is showing us like, hey, listen, George had a concept of this thing, and the Force doesn't mean one religion. The Force just means there's a different power at play here, and it just depends on how you sort of conceptualize it in your mind.
Yeah. And I like
So
that. I love
again,
that idea that it could be either way. It doesn't have to be one or
yeah,
the other.
mhm,
The men of faith, the people of faith, the people of science can be both. It's not something that okay, when that was first revealed, episode 1 and the midi-chlorians, there was a huge backlash of people.
yeah,
That's not the force. That's not what it
yeah,
ruins the force. It breaks the canon, it breaks the lore. And it's like, wait a minute. George Lucas came up with the lore. What are you talking about? It breaks the lore. This is the
yeah.
creator. He's the one who
He's the
made it.
guy,
Yeah. And
right?
so now we're getting the same thing with this show. Well, Kiadi Mundi, it changes of the it everything you ever knew about Star Wars is now changed because this character that had 30 seconds of dialogue in the prequels has now his birthday was changed.
Yeah,
Sorry guys, you were not Kiadi Mundi fans before this, and you're not gonna convince me otherwise. So no, it does not
right.
break the lore, it doesn't break the canon.
And this sort of concept of the high and mighty Jedi who go around feeling like they're the one true religion gets shoved back into their face by Manny Jacinto. His character's name is
Uh,
uh,
Chimere.
Chimere.
Yes.
Chimere. Which is just we all suspected it, I think, for a while now. Um,
It
and
became to
when
the
he had the
point where
mask on,
it became to the point where it's like, wait a minute, we are thinking it so much. Now we've come back around and say, oh, wait a minute, it can't be that because it's too obvious. Like it got to that
yeah,
point. Even with last
I
week's
told
episode, it was like, that's too much.
I told Stevie while the fight was happening, and he said the helmet's on so you can't see who I am, and I'm like, but he saw Manny Jacinto earlier,
Yes, yes.
so he would have recognized him then. But that's not what he was talking about. He didn't want to recognize him as that guy. He didn't want to be unmasked as a Sith. He didn't want to reveal himself as a Sith. And again, everybody's going to have to die. But I love this idea of his like, okay, he becomes unmasked. We'll get to that scene in a second, like who unmasks him and what happens immediately after. But he becomes unmasked and he says everybody has to die. But he's essentially saying like what I've been thinking and what Ryan Johnson brought up in The Last Jedi with saying that the Jedi have to die. That,
Yes, yes.
the religion itself isn't what the Force should be about. And the Jedi have been going around silencing these other religions, and uh Chimera, I'm never gonna get it right, is is fed up to the point where he's like, I'm tired of the Jedi suppressing. They won't allow me to worship how I wanna worship. So I'm gonna try to get myself an acolyte. I'm going to try to get myself, a Padawan and take you down. And it's one of those things where he's been pushed to the breaking point. Um, it's it's good storytelling. I'm
Yes.
sorry, it's not a
It's
trash can emoji storytelling. It's not everyone who just says trash and just posts the trash can emoji. I try to respond to a Star Wars thing on Instagram, and it comes up with suggested emojis, and the first one was a trash can because that's what people were using, and it's like, no, it's good storytelling. You just don't want to look past the quote woke stuff. You don't want to get past the fact that, I don't know, whatever the problem is. I'm not gonna suggest what I think the problem is. I have definite opinions in my mind, um, from the showrunner to the cast to, the characters the cast play. Like, I think they can't get past that stuff, and it's sad because they're missing out on a really good Star Wars. They're missing out on a really good story, and you can call me a shill. I mean, go
oh,
for
they
it.
will. They will.
Yeah, they will. They will. I invite you to come over and look at my bank account. I'm not a shill. Trust me on this. Uh, uh, Someone was ripping into live action Star Wars because we only had like 500 viewers, and they thought it was hilarious that we're shills and we only have 500 subscribers. And it's like, you have one subscriber and you're over here
Right.
yelling at our
Yes.
what you think is a small group of people. Like, why
Right.
attack this small group of happy people? It makes no sense.
It's
Go,
crazy.
yeah, go
Yeah.
to Shitty Star Wars Theory and go join on his bandwagon, and go yelling at Star Wars, and call Star Wars the worst thing ever, and then bitch that they don't invite you to Lucasfilm to join their round table and stuff.
Right.
It looks like James is awake in the UK. James, I don't
James.
know if you have been up long enough to catch the episode, but dude, um, don't watch it on your phone, please. Try. He was gonna watch it on his phone on his way to Glastonbury, and
Oh
I was just
no.
like, yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh
So he
no.
hasn't watched it yet, but watch while you pack or something. I don't know. Watch it. Uh,
Man.
so anyway, I love that Leslie Headland's creating this show that's like, it's the storytelling's good, but I like that it's sort of outing all the assholes on Twitter. It's really outing them. I've been enjoying doing all the blocking because we don't have any. I don't have any like room for that kind of nonsense. There was a
Are
time. There
you
was
on Threads?
17 years. I'm not on Threads.
I've actually been very surprised how positive Threads is. Anytime I'm
Oh,
getting
really?
these trash can and dumpster fire and all this stuff, I'm like, all right, let me turn on Threads because it's like I don't know if it's I've just curated my algorithm, but my feed is nothing but great stuff about Star
Great,
Wars in general,
amazing.
and then Acolyte. So I'm like, yes, this
Yeah,
is where I want to be.
we spend our time on Blue Sky, which we have like. There's not a lot of people on Blue Sky. Anytime we have guests on the show, I like to go over Twitter because we have a bigger following there, and usually, like, you've been great about retweeting and posting about this episode and stuff. And a lot of our guests hang out there, so it helps spread the word for the show. But I've lately have been going on Twitter a little bit more to sort of block out
That's good.
the Minox, and
Yeah.
it's become more positive. It's become a
Yes,
much
yes.
more positive place, um, especially after this episode.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
but there
yeah.
was one guy I didn't block who was like, I didn't like the woke stuff, but this episode was good. Why did we have to go through all this woke stuff to get to this good episode? And it's like,
That's
it's the same
yeah,
characters. The
yeah.
reason
That's
why you enjoy this episode is because you have this like compassion for these characters that you've been following.
yes.
So
That's
yeah.
at least that's a little bit of a breakthrough because I get a ton of comments on my YouTube and on my Instagram, and it's just nonstop. Why do they have pronouns? Why do they have women? Why do they have black people? Like, what is going on with a lot of these things? But at least now it's like, okay, I can admit. I saw Molly from Star Wars Explained. She had tweeted,
Mhm.
I can't wait till all the haters admit that this was a great episode. And I was like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's gonna be
Yeah. Yeah.
like hard to deny that this was a great episode.
Right. We lost everybody. I know last week I was like, oh, is that Plo Koon, but young.
That's
I
what I
didn't
thought.
see the credits, but this
Yeah.
episode definitely says that is not Plo Koon because he got
Yes,
stabbed
right.
in the chest and he is gone. R.I.P.
Yes.
Faux Clune, I guess I'll call him. What? So let's go through let's talk about who we lost. All the sort of rando red shirts that we know were not coming back. But then we lost Yord, who I don't know if we've seen a neck break like this, other than like Captain Antilles got sort of choked and thrown. But a neck snap like Rambo style neck snap we haven't
This was
seen, and that
yeah.
that threw me off. I just assume, oh, lightsaber through the stomach, done. But a neck snap, it felt more personal,
Yeah,
and I felt had a bigger impact.
yeah.
Lord,
Somebody I saw somebody on Twitter was saying this was the red wedding of Star Wars, and I was like,
yeah,
yeah, that's I can definitely see that comparison. And this is the Man of Steel Zod neck snap. I haven't seen that in Star Wars, but this was
yeah. I'm sure it's
probably the
got to be somewhere,
darkest.
but
Yeah, I can't think of anything. Maybe in a video game, but not
yeah,
like in a movie or TV show. I don't think so.
yeah. It's pretty brutal. Like the character, I like that the character was so by the book. But again, that's not.
He got a lot of hate, and a lot of it was people saying that the actor because he said that Anakin blew up the Death Star, and just like I kind of stumbled there, it's like, okay, he had a moment, he stumbled on the thing, and plus, I don't care if an actor knows every detail about Star Wars. I care if he's a good actor because he's
Yeah.
being paid to be an actor, not know everything about Star Wars. So for people to use that as the reason why the show's bad, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Do you think Ian McDiarmid watched Rebels?
Right.
No. No.
It's
Listen, it's an
insane.
acting gig. I spent 47 years with this franchise. I don't know everything there is to know about Star Wars. It's very clear that I don't. And I feel like it's not required to get a job to
Right.
be able to do that, especially as more times pass. The actor who played Yord is probably like 25 or something.
Right.
Like he was probably born around the time Phantom Menace came out. He probably was too young to see it in the theater. So how is he supposed to catch up on every single thing ever? It's impossible. Yeah, I miss say things all the time. I still can't remember Manny Jacinto's character, even though I stumbled through it twice this episode.
Yeah. That's
Kymer?
it. Chimera, yes.
Okay.
I just don't get it. I don't understand why that is your benchmark for, well, obviously nobody knows what they're doing over there at that show. That's some of the comments I've gotten on my Instagram and my
Yeah.
YouTube is
Yeah.
people, they don't know, nobody knows what they're doing. The showrunner came out and said that it's the gayest Star Wars ever. So obviously it's bad. And that even is a bad
That's
reading
not even a
of an
bad thing.
interview that she gave, that she was making a joke. And it was like, what is like, I, yeah, it boggles my
Just
mind. It
have
blows my mind.
it does.
I can't.
It does. Um Mark.
Yeah.
I heard Mark Hamill never even watched Star Wars movie before he accepted the role for Luke. Yeah. Yeah. Listen, not everything has to be trivia. I feel like it's people wanting to prove that they're a better Star Wars fan because they know more. That's not the case. You can just like it. It
Right.
doesn't hurt to just like it. or dislike it. If it's not for you, like I know Pete over at the Star Wars Minute, not a fan of Jedi, not a fan of, he's like tired of like every single Star Wars thing having a lightsaber in it. Even in Solo, they had to have the lightsaber in it. I think Andor was the first one not to.
That
I
sounds
think
right.
Andor made it without a lightsaber, and
Yeah.
it's one of those things. But he enjoys the Acolyte because I think
Nice.
it boils down to storytelling. Like I was not looking forward to seeing a story about Jedi. I'm like, let's just move beyond Rise of Skywalker, get new stories. I don't want to know, you know, people's fate before I watch the show. But this is doing it. Setting it 100 years in the past, or pre episode 1
Mhm.
is really helping me a lot. Um, Fan favorite Jackie, R.I.P.
I really liked what she brought, her energy, and she was also kind of like Yord to me. I felt like she was kind of by the book, but she felt a little bit looser, a little bit more free, and just her relationship between her and Saul, and then her and
Mhm.
Osha. I think there was some chemistry between them, and it just made it fun. Every time she was on screen, she had a presence. So, yeah, R.I.P. X-23.
Yeah, 3 lightsaber saber stabs through the chest.
And that was
That'll do
yeah, the
it.
way he did that, yeah.
He was blocking her to. He split his lightsaber in two. He didn't use it as a staff like Darth Maul, which was kind of nice. Split it in two. Was blocking with the one and just went with the other one, a little short handled. And I really like, he creates this helmet that has some sort of properties in it that'll knock out a kyber crystal for a couple seconds.
Yeah. I
And
noticed that, yeah.
they did this great George Lucas Star Wars thing where they don't explain it. You can pick it up from the context. You see him headbutt the lightsaber, and you're like, it starts flashing. You're like, what's that? What did I just see? And before you know it, he does it again, and you start seeing the pattern. You're like, oh, this helmet's like made of like copper or something, and it's really like disrupting the kyber crystal until it can get back online, almost like a little EMP or something. Like it creates some sort of spark. And I thought that was really interesting. George Lucas did that in episode 3 with Grievous's guards. They didn't have lightsabers, but he gave them staffs with electric bolts hanging out
Right,
on the sides. So as soon as the lightsaber hit it, you'd like, oh, the Jedi can't cut through that material.
right.
Boom. That's all you need to know. It's a cool thing that blocks lightsabers. This is a cool helmet that blocks or disrupts lightsabers, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I was looking up, speaking of not knowing everything about Star Wars, I saw somebody post on Twitter right after this episode that there's a medal that is from the canon, from Legends, that we have not heard mentioned, and it's Cortosis.
Okay.
This was a metal that had a high energy absorption rate and transmission coefficients, which allowed even the energy of a blaster bolt to be dissipated upon contact. One of the strongest minerals in the galaxy, Cortosis could even withstand the blow of a lightsaber and briefly short out its blade. So that 100% is, he had like gauntlets, and his helmet was
Mhm.
made out of Cortosis. So that's
Yeah.
like a cut for deep Star Wars fans. And
Right.
you and I wouldn't even, oh, that's a cool metal, that's a cool thing. So I love when they have, that's like the right type of fan service for me, when it's like you
Yeah.
don't even notice it, but
Mm-mm.
it's there. They'll point it out in Screen Crushes, 100 things you
Yes.
missed or whatever. So
Yes.
that's the
By
type of
by this
stuff.
time tomorrow, after I watch New Rockstars and Screen Crush, I will know everything about this helmet and
Every
everything
Easter
about
egg, yeah.
cortosis,
Yes.
and that's fine. That's fine. What's great is it not once did it bog down the storytelling
Right.
to
Yep.
point
It
itself out.
it
Yeah,
moved.
it's
Yes.
never. I hate it when a thing happens. It happens in Marvel a lot because I watch the Marvel movies usually once, maybe twice, where someone will show up and it's like this big moment, and I'm like going through my Rolodex. instead of watching the movie, going through my Rolodex, I'm like, okay, wait, I think that guy might be from Shang-Chi
right.
and the Ten Rings. I think he was that. And then by the time I figure it out, like I've missed all the exposition that has been spouted out. I'm like, all right, I'm lost. So I'm glad it doesn't dwell on that stuff where I'm like, I'm supposed to know what this is.
Yes. Yeah. That's
And I
good.
don't know what it is, and now I'm missing dialogue.
Yeah. And like you said, that's good storytelling. And again,
Yeah.
I've gotten all these comments about it's a bad story, it's bad writing, it's bad acting. That's all these things. I'm like, I just don't agree. I disagree with all of those points. So far, to me, all of those things have been great. As a matter of fact, I think the strongest things about this episode, besides like just the coolness of the lightsaber fights and everything, the action in this whole episode, was the dual performances of Manny Jacinto, where he switches. Oh, hey,
Yeah.
like like it's
Yeah.
almost that the smile comes out, and he's like that different guy that we saw. He's that Keimer from the first couple episodes. That to me, like, is like this is a great performance that he's putting on. And then Amanda Stenberg, her May and Osha, to the point where they feel like different characters. At the end of this episode, when she's playing Osha, I still felt
Yeah.
May in her performance. And
Right.
so that it's just good acting to me. That's just my
Yeah.
opinion.
I kept yelling at the TV to Saul, like, look at her forehead, look at her forehead.
I was thinking that too. I was thinking that.
Yeah.
There's got to be a point where it's at some point the wind blows her hair back or something. Like we're gonna see that.
It's gotta happen. Well, little Basil knows something's up.
Maybe he sneezes.
Yeah,
Basil
yeah.
sneezes and it blows her hair out of the way.
Yeah.
Also,
he seems to know something's up.
yeah, Basil, to me, MVP of this episode. I tweeted it because he went and got Pip. Because when she said, "Oh, Pip, I love you," I was like, "Oh no!" Oh, I literally said that out loud. I was like, "Oh no!" Because I love droids. WALL-E's my favorite Pixar movie. Like, I have a love for anything robotic and droids. So, Pip has been one of my favorites of this whole episode, of this whole show. And when she threw him, I was like, "Oh, he's gone." But when Basil picked him up, I was like, "Yes,
Yeah.
he saved him."
Yeah. Joseph Richie has entered the chat and asks who trained Chimere. I don't know. We haven't been told. It's very interesting. I'm not super familiar with, or I'm not familiar at all with the High Republic. So this is a blind spot for me. But I have heard some names by watching Screen Crush and watching New Rockstars about people who are pre-Plagueis, people names that have been flown around. There's two of them that float around. One of them is like a sort of a walrus man looking guy. Another guy has a long head. I don't know their species.
Yes, Darth Tenebris and Darth
Yes.
Plagueis, both of those. And there's been kind of some talk about maybe they changed the species, because before obviously Chimere revealed himself, people were like, "Oh, is that this species with the long head?" And people were like, "Well, maybe they changed him to be human. Maybe they changed his race. I don't know." But obviously they didn't for this. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. Do they leave it ambiguous, or do they actually give us that answer of who trained you? Because
Joseph has a theory that says Venestra Rowe.
I've seen that also, and a lot of people were saying she's different from the way that she's portrayed in the High Republic to what she's portrayed in this.
Some shit has gone down in her timeline, that there's a big empty chunk of time that we don't know about her.
Very possible.
I can't see a master of the dark side being in the Jedi Council or that close, that deep, and them deciding not to reveal themselves at that point. Even though Dooku was, he might have left before going over to the dark side.
Yeah,
I don't know the timeline on Dooku.
There's like a little bit of
if like Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars and the Clone Wars series, have him sort of overlapping as a Jedi and
Yeah,
Sith. With
right.
her name
There's
is
definitely
blanking.
oh,
The two lightsabers,
Saj Ventress.
Saj Ventress. There you go.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Joseph's going to timestamp this. Go for it. Go for it. We brought it up. We'll be able to play this and prove it later on.
It's
To
possible.
everyone else. Yeah,
I
we could
don't.
throw every theory. Let's throw every theory out there
Yes.
on who trained him, and then we could just play that clip.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
yeah,
Which often happens to me when I'm watching like an M. Night Shyamalan movie or something. When I know there's a twist, my mind starts to be like, all right, what is every single possibility? What is the 900 things that could this possibly be? And yeah, Vernestra
I
has come up.
so funny story. We went and saw The Village for the first time, and it opens up on a tombstone, and it says like so and so died in 1861. And I'm like, and my brain, I said, but what if it's not 1861? And the rest of the movie, apologies for those of you that haven't seen The Village, but I was like, as it progressed, I'm like, oh no, oh no. It was
That's
fun.
why I
It was
don't
fun.
like knowing that there's a twist. I like to be
Oh, I hate
like
it.
the Sixth Sense. Like you're just like, oh,
Oh
what,
yeah, yeah.
what? And then you
We were
like
all
go
taken by
back and
surprise, I think.
yes, yeah. That's
Yeah,
the best type of surprise, which I like that this is a mystery. Like this is something we really hadn't seen in Star Wars up to this point, like kind of like a murder mystery. And people in the first couple episodes were like, "Oh, well, we already know who it is. We know it was May who killed him, so the mystery's ruined." And I was like, "What?" There's so many
yeah,
more questions that need to be
yeah.
answered and mysteries that wasn't the main mystery that you should be focusing on. So I'm
Right.
that's why I'm excited about at 5 episodes now. We have 3 left. I don't know where they're going. I literally have no clue where
No, we
what
still
is
haven't seen the
Chimere's
other side of the flashback. I'm
right,
assuming
right,
next week
right.
we get the flashback because the way
Yes.
James was saying the way these episodes are laid out, it's going to be a mirror of each other. And these two episodes,
Ooh,
night and
that
day,
yes,
will
that's
be
where it
flanked
flips.
by
Okay.
Osha
Yep.
and May's flashback,
Yeah, that's
and
perfect.
it'll
Yes.
finish out the last two episodes. So I like
That's
that
perfect.
idea. I think
Mhm.
we're because here's the thing. I'm doing a movie about Lost. It's the reason why we're recording this now instead of our normal time, is because I have a Lost thing to do tomorrow morning. Um, um, what makes Lost still entertaining to this day is being able to still theorize about it. They didn't give us
Mm,
all the answers. I feel like they give us enough answers to the point where we can probably use all the information we know to go back and start getting the rest of the puzzle pieces. So with this, it feels like it is definitely going to lead to something, but it's more exciting when you think it's one thing and they present something else, and that brings up more questions because otherwise we'd have nothing to talk about on a weekly basis.
right, right.
And
This
the
has been a
fact that they're
great
not
water
stringing
cooler
us
thing.
along, so
Yes.
like when they say like, oh, they introduce May in the second episode, so we know it's not Osha or whatever, and it's like, oh well, that mystery solved. The other option is you keep the mystery a mystery, and the whole time people are like, oh, it's just Manny Jacinto. You know, there's no way to do it because Star Wars is such a big community. They're probably gonna figure it out. Like someone's gonna figure it out. There, Joseph's theory about Vanestra Rowe being the master for Chimere is one. Someone has another one. Someone has another one. One of them has to be right, and it's going to be like a game show wheel, like a wheel of fortune. It's going to have everybody on it, and we'll see which Star Wars podcast it lands on. Who got the right answer? Uh,
Yes.
but I'm very much enjoying this. The mystery is one big answer got answered tonight. Who is this Sith? He flat out says he's a Sith. which is bad because that means no one can know about him, which means he's going to kill a lot of people.
Yeah, see, I can see that being one direction that they go, but I can also see the way that he said it. He was like, "The Jedi could call me a Sith, but maybe that's just what he believes, or that's just
Yeah.
the phrasing of it, or he wants to think he's a Sith." But I don't think it's ambiguous enough that you can go either way. You can say, yeah, that's a confirmed Sith, which I know people are going to do. I know there's going to be the hatred. See, it breaks canon. He said Sith, and they said it wasn't a Sith for 1,000 years. So this is going to break the canon. I already know it. I can already hear your feedback. I can already hear your typing fingers. But I think even if it is a Sith, let's just say, you could still there's still 3 episodes left. There's still ways that you can say it never got back to the Jedi Council. It
Yeah.
got back to a certain few people. It got to Vernestra, and she hid it. We've already seen the Jedi archives get erased by
Yeah.
Dooku. We've seen that
Yeah.
before. So it's not unprecedented that something could get erased, can get removed from the files.
Yeah.
And we saw even in The Last Jedi, even in the sequel trilogy, Jedi at that point are a myth. Like there's things in that as
Yeah.
time goes on in the galaxy, things get forgotten. They're just they don't even think Luke Skywalker existed. Like Luke Skywalker, I thought he was a myth. Like there's plenty of times in Star Wars where we can say that the information has gotten lost as it's passed down the years. So to say that you never saw a Sith and there never was one, that's that's ridiculous to me. There's plenty of things that could have happened that we just didn't know about or the Jedi didn't know about. But it could
Yeah.
also be a conspiracy. So there's all
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
all kind of memes that we can do.
Yeah. And Kiara when he says, I thought the Sith were extinct for a millennia, he turns and looks to Yoda as if to like verify it. He's not saying it with confidence at all. So it's just
It
showing how he's not very confident.
Yeah, it could even be that Yoda knows and he's like, hard to see the dark side is. Anyways, how about that meeting that we were having the other day? Like, it
Yeah.
seemed like Yoda also was not like confirming it. It just seemed like he was like, all right, let's move on. So there's room in there. Like, it's ambiguous enough that you could still play in between those
Yeah.
moments. Like it's not set in stone. And that's another thing is it drives me crazy when people are like, and Lost is another great example. People act like the story was written from start to finish at the beginning and nothing changed from the start of a show
Yeah.
to the end of a show. Ideas, they didn't have this mapped out. That was a big thing when Lost was out. They didn't know where they were going. They didn't know what they were doing. And that was why it was a bad show. And it was like, do you know how TV works? Do you know how these movies work? George Lucas, as much as he likes to say that he had everything planned out, you could tell from the beginning he did not have Luke and Leia as twins. He did not have them as brother and sister.
Right.
They kissed. We know this. We know that Darth Vader was not originally going to be his father. We have records of this stuff, guys. Like it's not unprecedented
Right.
in Star Wars to change. So to pickpocket and to pinpoint that little Kiadi thing about the Sith, it's like you're grasping at straws to try to find something to hate on. That's not even worth it.
Also, nobody told Kiara that there was a Sith on this show. We don't know if Saul's going to get back to tell him that.
That's
Right now,
100%.
Saul is on a spaceship with May, and he thinks it's Osha. That's not good. She was willing, she was ready, she was all ready to give herself up. But Jackie came in, pressed the point, and she acted on instinct and reactions and kind of flipped back to being bad
Yeah.
and started attacking her, mostly in self-defense. But then after a while, she could have, while she was in handcuffs, could have said, listen, I did not kill Lorbaka,
Kilnaka.
yeah,
Kilnaka. Yeah.
Kilnaka. Um, she didn't say that stuff, so I don't know where she's at in her headspace, but she's definitely in a ship pretending she's OSHA. I don't know where this is going. Um, OSHA, Stevie mentions here, like, what's May up to, and did she hurt OSHA? I mean, she force pushed her and said you were never very good at blocking. When Chimere showed up, she had some sort of burn on her side. Um, I don't know if she got stunned, if that's a stun burn, or if it's a lightsaber burn.
Yeah.
But OSHA's definitely knocked out,
Yeah.
and
Something definitely happened there.
she's not wearing her clothes because now May is wearing the civilian outfit.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so that's an exciting cliffhanger because again, if people instead of being shitty about Kiadamundi last week without getting the full story, like hey, if we get through this full story, this full 8 episodes, and you find something that doesn't add up, then that's one thing. No one said Sith to Kiadamundi.
That's right.
The only people alive that know about this are May, Osha, Kamir, and Saul.
Yes. It still fits. It is not break the canon. It didn't break
It
the
has not
lore.
broken the canon. I know. I guess his birthday was mentioned in a Star Wars Insider in 19 or like 1999 or 2000, whatever. I stand with Wikipedia.
Yes.
They're fine.
I also do. And people are like, try, man, this blows my mind that this is happening. And I have to talk about this. But people were upset that Wikipedia got edited. And it's like, do you understand what a wiki is? Like it's
That's
not
what happens.
Yeah, like it's this anyways, that whole thing was dumb with the Wikipedia thing. But also the thing about it being on a book from 99, like they said when Lucas took over, the films are the canon, the things that were said in the films. I've never saw his birthday show up on anything. Happy birthday, Kiadi. There was no celebration for when he was born or how old he was. So why is that a sticking point for you to say this breaks the canon? Like
It's because they're mad at the other stuff and they
100%.
want to tear this apart. They want to belittle the creators. They want to belittle the actors every which way they can. I also saw in Star Wars Explained that they talked about someone took an old um, interview from the Daily Show from the actress who plays May and Osha, and took a snippet out of context and was saying she was talking about Star Wars. People really are mad at Kathleen Kennedy. They're mad at Leslie Headland. They seem to be okay with Filoni. I kind of see a pattern with who they're mad at and who they're not mad at. And they're trying to do everything they can and they're grasping at straws. And last week it was Kiadamundi's age. And that one little thing, which doesn't even matter to anybody, apparently is enough to put trash can emojis and to call me a shill for liking the Star Wars, which is actually very, very good. Tonight's episode was very, very good. This is I would put this up there with the One Way Out episode
Ooh,
of Andor. I would put this up there with the lights, what was that, the celebration of lights in Andor.
Oh, okay. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of the movie Solo. I would put that up there with this. This is definitely a highlight for Disney era Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it up there. I think Andor, a lot of the High Republic stuff, whether it's the novels or the comics, the video games, Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor have been great, and the animation has also been great. The not only Clone Wars, Rebels, and
Bad
things like
Batch.
that. Bad Batch was fantastic. They did 3 great seasons. Tales of the Empire, Tales of the Jedi, Star Wars Visions, the anime that they did, a lot of that stuff, and even the Jedi Adventures show for little kids, which is set in the High Republic also.
I've
Me and my
heard
son watch
I've
that
heard it's
and
good.
have a great time. Yeah, I love that,
Hmm.
and it's crazy to me, like, okay, yeah, there's some hits and misses with Disney. I'm not gonna say that every single
Yeah.
show is the best show of all time, but to say that Disney overall, Disney ruined Star Wars is the same as saying Lucas ruined Star Wars when the prequels came out, and to say that you didn't like it now, let's fast forward in 20 years, they're gonna be saying the sequels are great and whatever's out in 20 years is terrible and trash. So it's like you and I have lived through this before, so we know
Yeah.
this cycle, and it just I think just goes to reinforce how great Lucas was as far as world building, universe creating, that this is something that is we are still talking about today. It's still relevant in today's modern audience, and new storytellers are coming in and telling their stories. So I'm I just don't understand why people are like, "This is trash, this is garbage," and the woke police are everywhere and saying everything is woke, everything is terrible. Um, I don't get it.
It's not. It's not. And you know, if they don't come around, they don't come around. To your point, there are all those great shows. There are still prequel trilogies that are great. The original trilogies, that's great. There's a lot of great Star Wars out there. If the Acolyte's not for you,
Yeah, yeah.
go enjoy. Go enjoy the comics. Go enjoy Jedi Survivor. Go enjoy whatever you want to enjoy. Um, don't yuck on our yum. And it's just that simple. Like, it's a fun show. Johnny mentions that his only complaint that it was another short one, but on the positive side, it leaves him wanting more. Um, yeah. Uh, Candy V, I think I know her, says this Star Wars conversation is amazing. How all Star Wars conversations should be. Uh, yeah, yeah. And if there's something I don't like I'll tell you something I don't like about the Acolyte.
Yeah. Actually,
I think the I
for
think
anyone
I think the wipes are misplaced. I think the wipes.
Oh.
I don't think the wipes are done well. But who gives a shit? Who cares? Who
The
cares?
most controversial thing Ralph has ever said, the wipes
I'm a
are out of place.
yeah. Disney's not going to send me my shill paycheck this week because I didn't like the placement of the wipes. Um, but again, it's like I don't talk about it because I don't need to because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Um, uh, is there anything else you have to say about this episode?
The one thing, the wipes argument for me, I guess, the thing
Uh,
that I didn't like in this was the CG for the Umbra moths, which the ones that were attracted to the light. I didn't like that. The CG to me just didn't look great for those, but it didn't affect me. I wasn't like hung up on it. I wasn't this ruined this show. They ruined this because they
I I didn't like that part because I thought that's how Manny Jacinto was going to be dispatched.
I thought that
I
too.
was like,
Yeah,
wait, that can't be his death. He's got to
right.
come back, right? And I even said to Stevie out loud, like, he's coming back, right? Like I was really trying to convince myself and be like, okay, he's got to come back. And he does, which is great. Because his character is really interesting, and I can't wait to see hopefully next week his involvement in the tragedy that was at the place that I don't know the name of where the witches live. The other
Brenda.
side of the story.
Yes.
Yes.
I wanna
Uh,
see, yeah, where how he was trained, like, his backstory, what his connection is to the witches, because it feels like to me his powers have been enhanced by magic with a K. I think there's something
yeah,
where he's, like, floating like Mary Poppins in the last episode where he's coming down, and he just the overall
great shot.
strength that he shows, yeah, that is a great shot.
He's
Um
ripped. I've seen
Also
some of The
that.
Good Place. Stevie's a big fan of The Good Place, and Manny Jacinto is great on that show. Plays a completely different character. It's great to see him not only in a dramatic role, but a really threatening role.
Yes.
When I saw the ripped arms and like his arms were like super ripped, I was like, maybe that's not him. But nope.
You know, I saw right before this, actually, my friend had sent me, he was like, he went into Batman mode. He was like, all right, here's Manny Jacinto's arm from this press interview that he did, and here's his fingers. And I was like, those do kind of look like his fingers. In the last episode, they kind of saw his arms, even though it was in the dark. You saw his arms and his fingers, and some of the theories were maybe it was Mother Coral, the other witch, and a lot of people were like, I don't think her
I
arms look
thought that
like
too.
that. So that was a valid theory. That definitely could have been either of the witches to me. It could have been Anasea or Coral. But when I saw those arms, I was like, they're trying to show us his arms. And so,
Yeah.
but again, it got to that point where it was like, is it too obvious? Is it there's so much evidence that it's Manny. I was like starting to disbelieve it. Like, no, they're not going to be that obvious, are they? Or they're not going to go that
But there was a
far.
great moment. There's a great moment when Jackie jumped, knocked his helmet off, and she got stabbed. So we know his helmet's off, and her head and silhouette are blocking his face. And I'm like, are we
Yeah.
cutting? Are we cutting to credits now?
Yes.
What are we? Are they not
Yes.
going to show it?
Yes.
It was
Yes.
such a good reveal and an emotional one because she, in these last 5 episodes, she's been a standout character. She wasn't in episode 3, so it's really only been like 4 episodes that we've had with her. But
Right.
there's enough characterization and stuff written into that character where you kind of grow to love that character, and that's a tribute to the writing. This trash writing that makes us fall in love with characters and be sad when they get killed off. I can't believe it. What kind of trash is this? Why does this trash writing have to make me feel feelings?
Like I said, it's the degree that I don't understand. Like I can understand people saying,
Yeah,
"Hey, I don't like this. It's not my favorite thing." But to say it's the worst, like it's so hyperbolic to be like, "This is the worst Star Wars show of all time. How can anyone like this?" That was a comment that I've gotten on a lot of my YouTube stuff. Like again, I get the shill thing too. Anything that
yeah,
likes this, you're a shill for them, and you got paid. And it's like, what's funny about that is on YouTube, a lot of the people that are getting paid are the ones who have this is trash. Like they're getting a lot of the views, they're getting a lot of the probably ad dollars because they're
yeah,
attracting this controversy of this is bad. Come look at my thumbnail, look at my face. Like they're
yeah,
attracting all of this stuff. So they're probably the ones getting paid, not the people who like the show.
yeah. Agreed. Well, I love it. I can't wait till next week. James will be back. I believe our guest will be
Woo!
Jacob Fullerton from Astro Goblin, formerly of Funhouse. So come and hang out and watch that with us. We're very excited for next week. I'm assuming it'll be the flashback from the other point of view, and we'll see how Kamir fits into all this. Did he catch May when she fell? Because if the Jedi knew that the witches were there, I'm sure the Sith knew as well. Yeah. Vactor, thank you so much. Do some plugs. Everybody go check out the Vactor-Verse. If you want to give some
Yes.
links. Linktree at
Yes.
Vactor. Yeah, that's the
That
one I was
is
using
where I
for
have
here.
everything. I talk about comics. I actually have a comic book channel called This Comic Cooks, and I also have, in addition to Vactor-Verse, I am a fool, and I also started another YouTube channel called Trust in the Force, which talks about Star Wars. So all of these things are in the link tree. Thank you again, Ralph, for having me. James, I kept your
Yeah.
seat warm. Please come back and enjoy the show.
Thanks for everybody for showing up. We have 78 viewers. I think that's the most we ever had. I chalk that up to you. I noticed that you're sharing this over on your channel as well.
Yes.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you everybody who showed up for this.
Thank
Everyone who has a positive outlook on Star Wars, you're more than welcome in our tiny corner of the galaxy. Vactor, again, thank you for coming along. And also I have to say is, don't give in to hate and celebrate the love.
Punch it.